Welcome to a podcast with interesting people. I'm your host today, Mike Blasey, and I'm real excited to have Chef Craig Borlik here to talk about the infusion of technology and fresh produce. So before we get into that app, I kind of want to go through your story. You've been a chef, you have a catering company, you have a restaurant, you've even worked at Sundance with Robert Redford. So let's go back in your story and what got you interested in food in the first place.
Sure. Well, all these different elements sort of came together from all different angles, and so the experience part of it played a role in bringing it all to where it is today. So going back many years ago when I worked at Sundance for Robert Redford, he had a garden at his house just up the road from Sundance, and he liked the idea of us going up there and getting fresh picked produce that was picked that day and then serving it in the tree room. And it never really hit me at that time, I was younger and just starting out my chef career, about the flavors of the things that we were creating out of these fresh picked herbs and things that we had just gotten. And it was very special, and the tastes that we created were very unique, and I didn't really recognize that again until years later, but stayed in the restaurant business, and then just kind of between opening a new farm-to-table restaurant recently here in Linden, Utah, I again it sort of re-sparked the idea for how great it is to have those things. If you like to cook, how great it is to have those things when they're 1 or 2 days old, a tomato, some herbs. They just change. And so I over the last 23 years also, I've been thinking about this app, and loved to garden and loved to I kind of got the idea going back, that many years back when the first little webcams popped out.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, it'd be fun to kind of watch something grow. I lived in the Bay Area and had a small apartment in Palo Alto, and tried to grow some things in little pots outside my patio, but couldn't ever get them to...
Limited space, right?
Right,
Yeah.
so I'd move them throughout the day from one side to the other, to try to get enough sunlight to get anything to produce, because it's kind of in my human nature to want to grow and nurture and,
Sure.
get this thing and then eat it. It's like, not like hunting so much, but it's intrinsic in our human nature to want to hunt, and gather and forage and grow and nurture.
Right.
And so,
back to our ancestral
anyway,
roots.
as time went on, then came along the little game apps and phones, and the development of the smartphone came along. And originally the idea existed of just kind of having a little garden that you could just watch. And then the idea of sending the stuff to someone if they grew it from a remote location seemed interesting. And then it just went from one thing to another, and then next thing you know, smartphones came about, and then apps came about. And even though 10 years ago, to do something like this, to have this app and to have it all, would not have made any sense whatsoever from an economical standpoint, because a camera was $1,700 that
Sure.
you can now today buy for $70
Yeah.
for a
It's in everybody's
outdoor
pocket, right?
exterior remote
you're talking
camera.
the outdoor ones, yeah.
Nearly $2,000, and so that's dropped way down. But in addition to that, the shipping. If you took somebody a box of something and said, I want to get this to, the other side of the state, or from Modesto to California, or from, Provo to Salt Lake City by tomorrow, they would have said, okay, that's, $26.95 or whatever it costs. Right. And now with Amazon Prime and the development of the logistics and shipping system that we have, you can have groceries delivered to your house, pretty quickly,
right.
from across town now even. So, and then I started looking at these home monitoring systems where you could unlock your front door and you could You could adjust your temperature to your house, and you
Sure.
can see all those things, and to open your garage door and unlock your door and do all these things. I thought, well, if you can do all that, and you can view it, and you can make this click on, what's the difference between that and actually turning on a sprinkler? So I am a tech dummy, which is what's really kind of interesting and funny about this. But it seemed also easy to me. But it wasn't to the computer science major, Hunter, who's my nephew, who developed the prototype, because it took about 2 years of some pretty good work to get this thing all figured out. So I don't understand the tech part of it. It's just I'm the kind of the dreamer who luckily knew some people who came together and put the prototype together. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you saw it in the market, right? That there were other things that were similar.
Right.
And I think that's a good step for most visionaries is to see, okay, this is where the market's going.
Yeah.
I don't see the food piece in this. Let's see what we can do with food. So I love it. I
Right.
love the idea of integrating the tech to local produce and fresh food.
Yes, yes, yes. And that fresh food is healthy, and it's going to be organic. It's all going to be organic. And so that's something that's great, because even when I buy organic produce in the grocery store and everything, I always kind of wonder, where did it really come
Right,
from? There's
right.
a long distribution channel that it goes through from one person to another, and from growing it. But now, you'll have tested organic soil. We won't use it if it doesn't pass all the standards, and then you'll see it on your phone one day. There it is, and then you'll decide that that's something you're going to harvest. And then ding dong, it's gone from there, but it's at your front
Shows
door.
up at your porch.
Yeah, so it's kind of fun
love it.
imagining cooking dinner at a San Francisco, high rise, and you have some friends over and you're preparing some food, and they taste it, and they're gonna immediately recognize that there's something different about what they're eating, and without saying anything, people will ask, "Hey, where did you get this tomatoes? This tomato sandwich is incredible."
Did you get those questions at Sundance from your patrons there?
Oh yeah, and in fact we do at the restaurant now.
too
With
now.
the stuff we use greens from Snuck Farms in the summertime, and we source all of our stuff as locally and as organically as we can for the restaurant. And gosh, yeah, you can taste the difference. And not only that, but I have a herb garden that I actually use for the restaurant. So I'll go around the corner to a local farm and pick what I want. But it's kind of inconvenient, and it's kind of expensive, and I realized for myself what a customer I really am as a chef. And my restaurant isn't what I would consider by any means high volume, but some cities where they can't grow these kind of things. But if a chef could say that, this is from my garden, herbs are so expensive in the grocery store, and to buy by the ounce, and you can ship by the ounce for so much
Very
less.
cheaply,
yes. And
yes.
so and it'll all grow. All you have to do is give it more water every day, because the sun comes up and all of the organic waste is recomposted and put back in. So there's no waste, and all you're doing is taking advantage of the sunlight, the healthy dirt, and then some water. Those are the costs after the basic hardware and underlying platform is in. So it becomes a profitable business model, but that was really not anything that was ever calculated in the development of the whole thing. It was more of building this experience for people and this community where people could chat about their gardens and have contests and trade and share and maximize use of the land and save water and develop bee habitat and help out local farmers to utilize their land and become viable, and everything just was so perfect. And then as soon as everybody glued their faces to smartphones, I said, all right, they're plugged in, this is perfect timing. And then logistics and shipping became less expensive, and again, the technology of the camera is phenomenal, and at a tenth of the cost.
Yeah,
So
I love it.
all the planets,
Love it.
I say not only did the planets align, but it seems that the planets and the moons even align, because every aspect of it is good, and every aspect of it is healthy. Every aspect of it revolves around community, around health, around organic food, around helping. The bee thing is really interesting if you do any investigation. And on our Facebook page at GroGrub, I've got some stories posted about the bee decline and how alarming it really could be, and not to be an alarmist or a doomsdayer, but there's some people that have said some pretty scary things about what could happen
been in the news a lot
if
lately, in the
the
last couple
bees
years.
disappear, because there are pollinators. And one thing that a lot of people don't know that I learned recently is that 1 out of every 3 bites of food that we take has been affected, touched, or a bee has been involved in the way of that. 1 out of every 3 bites of food. So huge crops without the bees would become eliminated, and but we have to be careful and educate people about the bees too. And one of the things that you'll find if you research or or look at that link on our Facebook is that one of the best things that you can do is to eat local, organic produce. And there's a reason for that, which I also learned, is that these bees are in the spring, they come out and the first thing that blooms is the dandelions, right? And everybody's out there with what? Weed killer, Roundup, killing these dandelions. Well, here comes the bee and gets the pollen and takes it back to the hive, and just the tiniest, tainted pollen can actually kill, a whole entire hive of bees. And so the organic stuff, then they get healthy pollen and are able to reproduce instead of die. And that's critical. And so to be able to help with that at the same time is, hugely rewarding and inspiring and encouraging to me, because that's something that's important to mankind in general, around the world. And we have a worldwide patent. So that's why I'm not looking, to do anything but try to spread this throughout the communities in the United States, and then eventually take it to worldwide. And can you imagine the impact there's, I'm sure, unknown applications for the model in areas that are food deserts. And people, as they become aware of this app and stuff, I'm getting a lot of people also thinking, and they're coming up with even more potential applications and users for the app and the process than I had ever even really considered. But there's many, many, many benefits for people that are possibly disabled and can't go out and garden. For one, is that I always we want to definitely do a discount for disabled people and disabled veterans especially, who we're going to offer absolutely a discount for them. And we want to then, just everybody having the therapeutic benefit of being able to water it and to take care of it. It's your pet. If you don't, it dies. You're in charge of it. You're the steward over this little thing. And it becomes incredibly entertaining to me, because I've tested it and I've seen how much fun it is to be able to make this happen from a distance. And, someone said, there was an article in the Daily Herald, and they interviewed a local author who sold a lot of books on gardening and stuff, said that it removed, the kind of some of the fun or the experience out of it. And I think that that's definitely true. But this was never intended to be a replacement for anyone who had the ability to do all this themselves, and has the space to do it, and has the physical ability to do it, and has the knowledge to do it also. Because the knowledge that we're going to give people, I've seen some pretty horrible attempts at gardening, and we're going to actually...
Yeah, and I'm one of those people, so that's what appealed to me with this. And I saw that article, and that's actually how I found out about you. And I said, well, maybe I don't want to be the one doing the gardening, because that's going to die. I need some help, and this smartphone app would help me with that.
It would, and there's very little human element involved, but what we've done is we've created a watering zones, 1 through 4. So every plant that you can grow will fall with a certain margin of error into one of those amounts of water needed, so that way you don't plant watermelons next to say, a tomato, because this needs lots of water every day, and this needs only a little water every other day, and depending on its growth cycle, how much it'll need. So by splitting it up, that was the only thing that really makes it work, is that you can grow a variety of crops that all have different amounts of water requirements, which also, again, goes back to saving water. But yeah, so it wasn't the intent in any way to replace that, but one of the things that I realized in the testing of it was that before we had these things patched together where we could water and view, I had to go over to, to develop the sprinklers to the zones and make sure that the coverage was good and plan out in the 4 zones how many little spaghetti lines we would need to get the proper coverage and all that. It had to be done daily, so I had to go over and do it. And there was days, multiple days sometimes, that I was too busy to go over there and actually do it. And I realized, wow, if this thing was done, imagine I could have just pressed the button, and it would have taken care of it. How much time would that have saved me? And that's what we're trying to do with technology, is not necessarily to be lazy, but to create time in our lives to do other things, that because time is
that's the whole
so
purpose
limited.
of technology, right?
Right,
To give us
I believe
time to do the things, spend time with our family, to do
so.
the hobbies and things like that.
And you just hit on something else when you said spend time with family, because in my original model and picture that I took to the patent attorneys, where they scratched their heads and looked at it for a while, first thought I was crazy because I brought in this cut and paste poster of the vision over 23 years in a stack about this big of yellow notepad handwritten notes.
Sure.
And this is all I've got, guys, but let me tell you about it. And they said, well, no. And I said, but just look. And they sat there and they looked and they looked and they looked and they looked and they scratched their heads and they went, and then they said, okay, well, tell us a little more about this, and that. Okay, I think you might have something here. Would you like to us to go ahead and start with a patent search? And I said, yes. And so then, little did I know, when they said, oh, that's going to be $10,000 for the patent search, I thought that meant that they did the search. But a few weeks later, I got a stack of patents this high, and they said, here they are.
Oh, no.
Good. Now you go through these all, and you let us know if, you think that you've got something here. And I literally had to take, weeks to read each one and every bit about each one, and the garden button, the tomatoes on the moon, and everything other box-grown stuff, and all the other crazy whack-a-mole ideas that people have come up with. There was nothing even close to this, either here or...
That's the good thing about going through all those. You
Yes,
found
yes.
out that yours was different. So.
Right, and so anyway, the U.S. Patent Office granted just November 26th of this last year our patent after about 2.5 years in the process of review.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It's right here, and it's nice to have finally.
Nice.
And so I really never knew, if, the technology was either A, one taken, or B, prior art that could be,
Intellectual property that
right,
you could use.
that could be applicable. And so what I gave them was extensive enough and different enough and beneficial to. They really like things that are of worth rather than just beer helmets and things like that.
Yeah.
So I think they really liked it, because they actually expedited the last little step of it rather quickly when they asked us to add the chief examiner asked us to add a hardiness model to it, meaning that it would be available to people to know in different regions throughout the United States what their growing seasons are and what to be able to expect from certain particular plants and crops, which we kind of already knew existed, but we had to give them a little more meat, so that we said, if we sell this in California, you can probably have 2 crops throughout the year and grow lettuces and Brussels sprouts and things like that through the winter, whereas in, Minnesota,
climates.
you may only have 6 months, and you need to know when to plant what.
Sure.
And so it's again more just education and knowledge to pass on to the user of what they can expect to do in their geographical area.
Sure. So we've kind of gotten the weeds, no pun intended,
Yeah.
to the details of this. Let's
Yeah.
take a step back and kind of give the high-level picture. Okay, we got this app that's showing a plot of land. Where are you getting these plots of lands from?
Good question. I love questions, as I always said. And so the plots of land will be existing organic farms that are underutilizing their land, and they're out there because I've already visited them, and I've even offered them things such as a partnership and an investment in the very beginning, and I came to find that they're really interested in that, but what they really need today more than anything is income and cash, because they have taxes and they have stands out front where they're selling their stuff.
Right,
and they're
by
very
the road. I see
susceptible
these
to,
farmer markets on the road, right?
Yeah, and a lot of them are the perfect size to put a lot of little 12 by 12 plots into. They're 10, 15 acres, and our first one's only going to be a half an acre for that 80. There's actually going to be 80, because 64 will be available through our Kickstarter to people who want to. I think we made it really clear that we want these people to be involved and sort of participants in the beta test, and we want to get all their experience and in other words, the first year is going to be a lot of learning and trial and error, and
Sure.
we'll be trying to get all of their feedback. So we don't want too big of a focus group for that first one. We'll take what we learn there, and then we'll build that into the next phase. And I really see there being about 3 versions to the app over the next 2 years, because one, as it becomes more sophisticated, it becomes more expensive, and two, we need to establish the demand, which we'll be able to do when we have people, wanting it and telling us we're willing to pay you X amount of dollars, $100 or $25 for a reservation or a first 2 months towards this thing when it comes around, to get on a list, to be the first ones to get to try it. So I know that I personally would do it. So I only can go off, and a lot of other people have told me I'll be your first customer. So based upon surveys, it seems that I haven't heard anybody say
Market
that's
research,
a terrible bad idea.
Yeah, it sounds great to me,
And,
especially
yeah.
to someone that doesn't do a lot of gardening, to have this option out there.
Yeah, and they can't mess it up, because, again, getting back to that whole planting system, is that it won't let them, when you get to design, you could custom lay out your whole entire garden, but it won't let you put the wrong thing next to something that it won't grow well next to.
Gotcha.
Based upon mainly its watering requirements. There won't be much of an override for that. We won't let you ruin it. And so, but other than that, there becomes a lot of flexibility in the different gardens that you can do. In fact, I think one of the things that I thought of most recently that's really neat is the whole medicinal garden, and not just herbs, but people are really into now a lot more of the, the Ayurvedic type ingredients and things that you can use that are natural, and not just cooking, but in medicine too. And so we plan to eventually have and learn more about, or find the right person to help me with that, because
Sure.
I'd like to learn more about it myself. But all those things grow, and most of them are wild type herbs and things that will flourish very easily without much attention at all. That's the one thing I learned about doing gardening, is it's not like a bonsai. You're basically giving it water, and it really does its thing. One little bean strand might run astray, but that's what's fun about this is that it does incorporate a small human element, because in the budget I've allocated for one full-time job per acre, per 190 plots, to just wander the property and take care of a little weed that might pop up, or a little sprinkler that popped out, or something. So you won't see that as a user, but there is a tiny bit of human oversight on your plot. But other than that, the only time anybody's going to step into it is to harvest what you want. And, to touch on that a little bit, on the harvesting, There's certain crops that get too big and they're too much of it and it falls off, and we don't want its seeds sprouting in the ground. We don't want hundreds of tomatoes sprouting up everywhere. And so those fruits, when they become ripe, zucchini, tomatoes, peppers, things that start to become overgrown, you're actually issued a weekly harvest or donate ticket. This is where it gets kind of interesting.
I love it. Yeah.
So things that are going to grow and continue to grow, like melons or a pumpkin or whatever. We're not going to say your pumpkin's ripe, but or whatever. But other things not only produce more by being picked, but then don't go to waste. So then let's say you get your pick or donate ticket. It's not going to include your rosemary, and it's not going to include your corn, and it's not going to include anything that you've been nurturing all year for that one harvest.
Crop, yeah.
Some things are a one pick. Beans, snow peas, things that grow quickly. There's radishes, carrots, all kinds of things. When they become ready, you get them or you donate them. But before you donate them, what's super cool is that you're going to get to decide, when you get this ticket, it's going to say you have 10 pounds of tomatoes. And the current value of tomatoes is $2 a pound. You only want 5 pounds of your 10 pounds of tomatoes. So you say, ship me 5 pounds. That way you don't pay for any excess that you don't want. And then the other 5 pounds goes into our farmer's market, which is something that's going to exist from the beginning and be slightly more manual at first, but will be integrated into the next phase, where you'll be able to then use the value of those extra 5 pounds of tomatoes at $2 a pound. So you've got $10 now of a sort of a Bitcoin value, of imaginary a credit
something
in your
to barter,
account.
Something to barter
exactly.
with,
And
right?
with that, then with your credit, you can, on a first come, first serve, real time farmer's market on Saturday mornings, after people have all decided what they want, then you can then use that towards anyone else's excess. So even if it's red tomatoes for yellow tomatoes, or red tomatoes for cucumbers, or red tomatoes for zucchini, if you don't want to plant any zucchini, somebody's going to do it and have extra. So
you'll get what you want eventually.
You should eventually, once we get to a level of having 1,000 or 2,000, 1,900 gardens in one community, which is only 10 acres. It only takes 10 acres. Right. No, it's a small farm. It's a part of a small farm. And so when I say small to medium farm, those are the people who aren't able to produce. Like I said, they've hit the end of unless they make greenhouses and start growing vanilla beans, there's no way for them to make more money other than through inflation. But you've got all these giant corporations
doing organic stuff now, so
right.
They kind of have to have a different market mindset.
Exactly, and so their market is not to do anything but to lease their organic land, and I really want to reward them for being kind of the pioneers. It would really suck to be kind of the one who really forged the way for something and then became obsolete, and so this gives them a chance to become viable again and sort of reward them in a way for pioneering the way into the whole organic movement, and for keeping their land fertile and keeping it clean and free of pesticides,
right, yeah.
free of pesticides, and gave about about the earth, because they didn't do it, most of them, for any other reason than they found value and good in it, because
Yeah, you look at all these big seed companies that are monocropping, and how bad that's destroying our earth and soil, and all the nutrients are gone from the soil, and that gets into our food, right? And that's what your customers at Sundance were talking about.
Yeah.
When they're eating these fresh foods, there's nutrients in there that we're missing, and our body recognize it. Right. So
that's why people are getting sick from all these different foods, and why all these diseases are becoming more prevalent, I believe, but I'm not a nutrition scientist, and so all I know is that the trend is definitely toward healthier, non-GMO, eating. And here's another cool thing is that we'll have a seed library also. So in that little area, these people that are out there gardening and everything, if you want to save a tomato, everything will have some sort of, cost associated with it so that we can stay profitable or viable, but we'll have it to where you can actually save the seeds from that particular previous year's crop and then use that same seed. It'll be
Oh, really?
cataloged in
Wow.
a library, and you can replant the same strain that you grew
If you
the
really
year
like
before.
that fruit
Those
or
are
vegetable.
heirloom vegetables, heirloom stuff that actually tends to grow better year after year in the same place, like something like a flower like a hollyhock that grows back the same year. It gets bigger and bigger every year. Just like if you keep planting that second, third, fourth generation of real, heirloom vegetables, then you're going to get great, healthy, incredible tasting, sustainable stuff that it's crazy to think that when you buy something at the store and you think that's a good tomato, I'm going to save a seed or plant an apple, or plant not so much an apple, but so many vegetables and crops, to think that when I was a kid I would be able to take those things and plant them and then grow
Right.
one, and now
Yeah, my kids have tried that, right? It's like you
dead.
take the seed and then nothing happens.
Unbelievable.
It's like, well, that's because we've genetically engineered these things to get the seeds out or to get them so small that we can't even recognize them.
What happens when there could be catastrophic repercussions, it seems to me.
Yeah.
But we're going to have some of these seeds. Everybody who's a user of our platform will at least be able to get fresh, organic, non-genetically modified heirloom vegetables delivered fresher than they can get in any grocery store to their door for a cost that now I think makes sense based upon my last few trips to the grocery store and buying what I would consider a comparable week supply for a medium-sized family. I would venture to almost say that the day will come that it will save you money, not to mention the experience that you get from doing it. And when you talked about family, I got sidetracked again because it's so easy to do talking about this business, but families together spending time on an app like this rather than a video game, I think it really takes you back. I think we have a generation of people that sort of miss the whole gardening experience for whatever reason, urban development and
Right.
and cities, and just you see how population has increased over the last several decades, and how cities have grown and how density has become so important in housing that we just don't have the space for it.
Yeah,
So
even in
many
this
people
area,
don't.
right? Just
And
in the
it's-
valley,
and it's
almost
not
that's gotten,
changing. It's going that direction. The land, the earth is not getting any more smaller. So this gives us an opportunity to make better use of what little space even exists.
Yeah, and I've been fortunate enough where I grew up, we lived with my grandfather for a time, and he had a pretty decent-sized garden in the back, so I don't know, this was probably like a 40-foot by 40-foot garden. And so I had the experience of shucking the corn and picking the beans and the tomatoes, and it was great, and I'd love to, carry that on to my family as well.
Yeah, and so, you will be able to in certain aspects. And like I said, it's not meant to replace, and I hope people will hear the message of the bees, and I hope that people will try to help with that cause. But I also think that it's sad that we've sort of lost a little bit of the ability to do that. I don't know if we've lost the desire, but we've lost the ability
The
because of
environment
this
has changed,
environment.
yeah.
And so to kind of be able to take people back to something that I think people our age, and based upon kind of the demographics of the people that are following us on social media, it's right in that age where we have those those 10-year-old, 15-year-old kids and young kids that are on their mobile devices and all that stuff, and just to be able to spend that time together, both designing, talking about, and then even when it comes back home, imagine the mothers and the daughters or the husbands and the sons and whoever wants to cook that stuff too. There's something special about something that gets delivered that you grew. It brings attention, and I think it brings people together in so many ways. I think instead of everybody being on their own device doing their own thing, maybe there's some unity there that can sort of bring people together on one thing
share.
for one night.
Look at
and
my
they can
garden.
eat it and have dinner and experience the taste together and what they grew and what they accomplished. Is a very healthy, seemingly healthy activity to me from both a social, economical, and a family. I just can't see
Family
anything but
event,
good
right,
coming from it.
Right.
Yeah.
So take it. So you kind of shown us the end point. Take us back to, okay, we start with this app that we download. We pay a monthly fee for the plot.
Right.
Okay, what happens next?
Okay,
Do
so
we
then
get to
you
pick, like, I
select.
want strawberries. Okay.
So then there'll be basically a drag and drop eventually system. The first phase will be a little bit manual in the actual layout and design, but by the time we get to the second version of the app, we should have basically a drag and drop system. Now every plant is designed with a space parameter because based upon my experience, I know how much space a zucchini takes. I also know how much you can produce gardening vertically. So certain things like cucumbers and things that people have traditionally grown across the ground can be grown up through cages. And believe it or not, in people's home gardens and people who have the space, they'll grow a pile of cucumbers. They'll branch out all different directions and take up 6, 8, 10, 15 square feet, and they'll get a few cucumbers, but literally if they were to take those same 4 cucumbers and plant them in a cage and do it 6 feet tall, they're a vine, and they'll have so much more production out of so much less space. So we'll maximize the production of the space. But anyway, they'll drag and drop, and they'll lay out the garden and the design of it, and it'll get planted, and then they'll water it from there. But see, I almost forgot where the question even started.
Yeah, so
I spins you off every time.
The design phase is what my kids will really be interested in. They're like, I want this here, and then my other kid, no, I want this here, and they can coordinate and
you bet.
Create it. Right?
And you can totally, completely do that. There'll be some smart planting tips, in other words, where we know based upon another thing that's really important is that in this first phase is that we're going to dedicate 8 gardens for testing and development, where we have a master gardener who will be doing different crops next to different things. On this side, everything's north, south, east, west oriented, so everybody's gardens, no matter where they are, will follow along the same solar path and same solar easements created by different things growing. So what grows on this side of corn, what goes out, you'll have the flexibility to do just about anything you want, with some advice that might not be the best place for that you might try this.
Gotcha.
Feel free to go ahead and put it there as long as it falls within the watering requirements of those same type plants. In other words, you can grow the corn here, and you can grow the lettuce right in front of it where the afternoon sun will burn it, or you can grow it on the backside where it'll get shade in the afternoon. We find that it grows better back here, but now lettuce and corn don't even have the same water requirements, so that's a bad example, but you know what I'm saying.
Get it. One's taller than the other.
Testing, right, to determine where, and one of the other nice things is in the size of the plots, the 12 by 12 plots, the 190 per acre, that leaves also 3 feet for in between each one. So there's actually 190 15 square foot plots, so that 3 feet can be used in all directions for not just harvesting and travel for workers and people, but also for any potential solar, easement infringements by your neighbor growing corn right next to you. Because somebody said, well, you'll really only need the rows going this way, and you could leave just 2 feet. And I'm like, no, that's idiotic. Why do you want to be greedy? Stop. That's why I'm not going to sell it to a corporation.
Yeah, right.
If they want to partner with me, that's fine. But I'm going to make sure that this is not just a completely for-profit driven company, because I've seen what happens when that happens, and people, the stockholders want more, and there's always
Right.
another way to squeeze the good out of everything.
So let's go back to the workers. Who are going to be working on these
great
plots?
question. Yes. Okay, so that is what's another thing that's wonderful, is that each acre will create a job for one person pretty much full time, and it's been budgeted into the
Monthly
business plan,
subscription,
right, to pay that person really an annual salary. Now that's one per acre. They'll have to be a manager for a larger scale place also, but the main labor costs are going to be that tender per acre, because based on my experience, and it may change, but based on my experience, an acre is a good size piece to take care of. That's 190 individual plots. So you're basically walking down looking for a weed to pop up or a misplaced sprinkler or whatever, but it requires some element of human oversight. Then on the harvest day, we will have part-time people who are weekly who will come in, and it's going to take about 10 people to harvest those 190, about 20 people full-time one day to harvest, pack, ship. Well, that's how much time it's going to take based upon our experience.
And they're going to separate your lot and your little thing, right? You're not going to get something from somebody else's.
No, you're going to get exactly yours, because when they're harvesting, it's going to basically, they're only going to do 20 plots. So we're kind of micro-focused on the actual harvesting. That's important that it be that. You can't just go around and pick everything and throw it into a big thing and say, okay, he wants 6 of these, because that's what's so beautiful about it, is that if you zoom in on this big fat giant tomato, and you realize, well, it has a bug mark or a sunspot on this side, and then they say you have 12 tomatoes, or you have 2 pounds of tomatoes, and you get them all, and that tomato's not included.
You're missing that
You're
one.
going to know.
Yeah.
And so, but that's equally as stunning, is that when you get it, you're going to go, I'll be damned. This is my tomato.
This is the one.
Yeah. And I think that's when it really is going to hit home with people, because I haven't experienced that yet. I've grown some stuff, and shame on me, shipped it into California to my brother to try the packaging, the ice. Don't come get me, Department of Agriculture. But anyway, ice packed it and sent it to him. Some tomatoes, some basil, some things like that. Sent it for like $7 or something like that. It arrived 2 days later. Chilled, ready. He chopped up the fresh herbs and made pizza and everything. Roma tomatoes from the garden here in Utah, shipped in. That's not going to work in the overall business model. We obviously know that there's interstate regulations, but that's one of the things that I love about it, is that it forces us to really be community-based, so it won't be available. So the second stage, that creates...
So on that note, if you want to go out and see your lot, is that a possibility?
I've put a lot of thought into that, and I don't see why not, but that's a great question. It's not like a top secret garden that nobody can go to, but I see it being, educational for schools to come visit and that kind of thing too. And so, sharing publicly. So, there may be a certain day of the week maybe where it wouldn't interfere with kind of operations, which
like a field trip day.
Yeah, a field trip day, and then maybe also a user day where you could come out and do it. But again, what's to stop you from cheating and grabbing a tomato? Now, I don't mean that in a bad way, but I'm wondering if it takes away from the whole virtual aspect of it, this sort of curtain between you and your garden.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I can kind of see both ways, though.
Yeah,
you got the virtual, but maybe you want to go once a month and see, this is great. And then it's only a 5-minute thing, and you're not touching anything.
If you're within even a regional, you may be a day's travel to the garden.
Yeah.
See, that's the whole thing. Because what if we're in Modesto and you're in LA? If you really want to come to your garden, do you want to drive 5 hours to come see it? And if so, how often? So that
there's a lot of
every question
logistics.
leads to another question. That's why I say I love questions, because I've thought about all this stuff over the last 23 years.
Yeah.
And that's a great question. And so I see no reason why this is your little leased plot if we give access to it at certain times. And And whether, you're allowed to pick a weed in it or not or whatever, I don't know, because see, then, there's going to be a little bit of spaghetti line in there, there's going to be in each 4 zones, there's actually going to be 4, the little steak and spaghetti sprayers. So you'll actually see the water come on. Somebody said, well, why don't you do it underground? I said, well, that would potentially save a little more water, but there's something fun about pushing the button and seeing the sprinkler go on, because you're controlling it from hundreds of miles away. If it's wilted, you save it, and it's better. So, those are great questions, but I think it depends on what the people want. Because one of the things that's important, and why I want to do this focus group and why it's so important to build the user experience and to work out the bugs, is because you have to listen to your customers. That's something that's very important in the restaurant business and in any business. And so if customers, or I want to call them customers, I want to call them members, or I want to call them, people that are part of the GroGrub community. But if all these people want to be able to visit their garden, then my goodness, what do I have to hide? Let them come,
Just some logistics involved
exactly,
about how to get people.
Of traffic.
So I can kind of envision this.
Parking.
Yeah, exactly.
What about parking?
So maybe
I didn't
have
plan for parking for these 190, plots, and all of a sudden
and
one
showing
Saturday,
them where they're set.
Right. So again, see, so many questions, but those kind of things, as we go, we learn, and we're forging. This is like the Starship Enterprise going to new frontiers, and so those are great questions. But on a 10-acre plot, if the farmer says you guys can park over here on Saturdays once a month, and if 100 cars come, people want to look around, great.
So I could see maybe having 2 different customer base, right? You have one customer base that doesn't ever want to come visit the farm, and you divide the farm that way.
Yeah.
And you've got a smaller plot over here. Well, we're going to set this up for foot traffic.
Yeah.
And these are the people that really want to come and see their farm. So I could see something like that.
You could potentially split it up that way, but I think that here's the other thing, and what's wonderful too is you don't have to worry about. One of the nice things in the home application about this is people have pests. Believe it or not, people have been known to take vegetables from someone's garden that isn't theirs, and this makes this less likely to happen if your backyard isn't fenced, because if you use this in a home application, remember it's on 24-hour monitoring. So what happens is when you're not live on it, this I haven't mentioned yet, but when you're not live, here's a fascinating aspect that's built into it that technology, again, lent itself for. The stepping stones just kept landing in front of me on this whole project, but time-lapse. So what happens is when you stop looking at it live and watering, it goes into a time-lapse recording mode. So if you don't look at it for a day, you'll notice that tomato is orange, and you come back the next day and you haven't looked at it, you're gonna hit bring to current, and you'll actually, right before your eyes, see that tomato change colors, or you'll see your green bean vine actually climb up the thing and then stop at live. So you won't miss any of the growing or the ripening or anything that you go out to your garden to check on every day. Not only will you get to see where it's at today, but you'll be able to quickly see how it got there.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. It's like those nature videos, right? That got this time-lapse thing.
Simply, you just take one frame every, 2 minutes or every 5 minutes or whatever it takes to be able to catch up, say, 24 hours in a minute.
Cool.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the plots again.
Yeah.
So we got this webcam, or maybe, are there multiple cameras?
Good question.
And can you control them?
Yes. Very good question. In fact, yes. So the technology of the cameras even has changed very recently. And so originally, you had a $1,700 IP camera. Then, $200 less expensive, it started to move. Then another $200 less expensive, it started to zoom. Then as the price continued to go down, it kept getting better, just like your laptop computers that you can
like
buy for
all
$300
technology,
now
yeah.
that cost $4,000 20 years ago. So, and inflation related, those would have been, the old Apple iMac that my dad has would be $20,000 computer today. But anyway, so going back, where were we now? See, I got lost for a second there, but we were talking about the
webcam
the
technology,
webcam
yeah.
technology, yeah. So the camera then continues to evolve and get less expensive. And now what my brother and my chief technical officer, his son Hunter, who's a computer science major at Cal Poly at San Luis Obispo, there's now, we have eliminated the moving parts from this IP high definition camera, and it's a 220 degree camera that actually takes a constant photo that you can view, and instead of moving up and down, what happens is somehow, and again, being the computer dummy, it's all there, but instead you're zooming in and out and panning on an image that's wide angle
wide
and
angle,
exists.
sure.
And so you see this, but if you want to look in on this, all it's really doing somehow is focusing more, not focusing, but selecting that part of the camera's view and then expanding it so you think you're zooming and panning, but you're not. But
the
there's no
camera's
moving
not
parts.
moving, yeah.
Right.
It's all like in software, right?
Yeah, and
That's
and those are not, and again, better and less expensive.
Sure.
And I don't know that they're necessarily less expensive right now. They will be soon. But what that does is eliminates using parts, moving parts, which then reduces repairs and maintenance and potential problems. So you've got a
Right.
fixed camera done, you know.
So back to the workers.
Yeah.
When you say, you know, I want strawberries here, I want zucchini here, and this plant here, the workers get some kind of notification on the
exactly.
computer, and then they just go out there and plant the seeds?
Perfect question. So the harvest process actually takes time over a few days, and I had to think this through. How's this going to work? How can it be big? And then one of the things that I was really good at that came from my restaurant, my catering experience, is starting with the end in mind, and then working your way backwards. Because by reverse engineering it, you say, okay, how do I get here to these packages of produce that are all going to go out? You know, instead of let's just assume we're going to pick them. No. So you start at the end and say, okay, well, how many packages, and then how many plots is that? And how long does it take to pick each one? And then how many people does that mean that you need per acre and all of that? So you work it all the way backwards, and then, and anyway, so the person, he tends it, and he does that throughout the week. And then, so what happens is that person, he'll intimately know those 190. That's why it's important for him to know that many gardens, and that's the manageable amount based upon my experience. And he'll know that he has plots basically 1 through 190, and he'll by being there, it's amazing how much you, in human memory, you'll be able to remember about each one. But then he'll actually go around with, just like you see him walking up and down the aisles at Walmart. And they go, okay, well, there's SpaghettiOs, there's 6, or there's this, or there's that. And they scan it, boom. And how many? 2, boom, boom. And so, same thing. He starts out on Thursday, and he starts walking, or Wednesday afternoon, each plot. And he just takes note that you have 6 zucchini, because he's not looking at everything. He's looking at, again, the vegetables and fruits that are going to be harvest or donate. The others, you're gonna know when you want, because that's gonna be added in. When you pick those is gonna be when you actually add them to your order. But with the other stuff, what's gonna happen is he's gonna basically see, this is overgrown. He's got 12 tomatoes, he's got this, he's got that, he's got that. So from that, he's going to issue then your harvest or donate ticket. Boom. So that comes to you. Then it's your responsibility to reply as to what you want.
What you want
if
to
you
do
don't,
with it.
guess where it all goes? You get a tax credit at the end of the year, even if you don't touch it. We'll track everything we give away. So even if you never replied or participated, we literally would collect everything, put it into the farmer's market. If you didn't then trade or use it, it would get co-packed, sent to charity, and at the end of the year, you're just going to get a slip that says you donated $765 worth of produce. Here's your charitable donation slip. Please give it to your accountant for a tax write-off from Uncle Sam, which is another thing that I absolutely love about it.
Yeah, it's the default is donate.
I don't think anybody feels bad about a tax write-off,
yeah.
right? And so,
or helping a food pantry.
Exactly,
right?
the food's going to a good cause. Nothing's going to waste. That's the thing, is there's zero waste if we can make that happen. That's our goal. So again, then he issues the pick or donate ticket. You decide what you want. Then what happens is then that simply gets converted through lots of programming and coding and things that cost money, a ticket back to him. So when the picker comes to the plot, it's going to say how many you have, and there's going to be bucket A and bucket B. And bucket A is going to be what's going to him, and this is the excess that's going into the farmer's market. They're basically splitting it into two piles.
Sure.
And then it goes with his package ready to go, with his basket, I would call it. It's not even a package at this point yet. It's a basket, because then he may end up with other things going into that he gets from somebody else or not. Then it gets packed and shipped in various size boxes.
What about shipping it to somebody else, like a different family member or something like
question.
that?
Gosh, that takes me back so many years to the beginning. Because one of the first things I wanted to do when I wasn't sure how shipping was going to work and how to price it all out and everything, and there's just no way to tell, because everybody's going to grow different things and require it. So the only way was to do it was to give them an inexpensive, access to the land, and then let them buy and ship whatever they want. And I've shipped pumpkins that I grew in California home to my kids for Halloween from my garden, and I paid whatever it was to box up these pumpkins that I grew myself and ship out of California. Utah, legal or not, I don't know, but I think it is fine going out of California. But anyway, so the thing is that then you get what you want, it gets shipped to you, and I almost got sidetracked again, but take me back to where we were.
Yeah, so say I've got these extra produce that I'm not going to use for my family, but I want to ship them to
a friend
or a family member.
Yes, thank you. And that would be totally fine, yes. And I almost wanted to include, that's why I said you took me back, and when you take me back, you lose me. So, but the thing is that one of the things I wanted to do is include with each membership is once or twice per season, where you have that abundance, and we'll offer like a free ship to family or something like that. But you'll absolutely be able to ship it to a different address than your own. Good question, because that's a great idea. Yes, you would want to potentially share that with someone else. Since you grew it.
It's a very unique,
send it to your brother,
personal gift, right?
It really is. It really is.
You can get on Amazon.
And I'm glad, it's so funny, because as so many things had come along over the years, just your idea right there took me back 200 ideas back to an idea that actually is in the notes somewhere about doing something, whether it be a one-time shot to family members or you donate your extra to charity. That kind of evolved into something else. But yes, shipping a gift like fruit of the month to your family, but you grew, I want you to have this watermelon. I've been growing it all summer long. I got 2 of them. I'm sending you 1, bro. Yeah.
That's great. I love it. One thing we did talk about too is, besides the usual, if you're in California or in a densely populated area, that a lot of chefs might be interested in this just for the spice aspect. And I don't eat a lot of vegetables, so I think that would be a real appealing thing for me, as if I can grow maybe some cinnamon or some ginger or some of those spices or herbs.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and I discovered again through testing and development and through my experience cooking that I am like the Hair Club for Men. I'm not just the president, I'm a customer too. There used to be that commercial. But I realized what I was spending on fresh herbs to cook with. And it seems that we all have a budget, a food budget. I didn't at Sundance. That was what was so great, is that I could use all these fresh herbs, and the restaurant was never really expected to make money, but most restaurants, they are in business for a profit, right? And, you know, Robert Redford's Street Room, he had a little leeway there, but for most places, herbs are expensive. They're sold by the ounce, not the pound. And
they're usually not
I found
fresh.
myself,
They're usually not fresh
they're not
either.
as fresh as what you'll be getting. For one thing, they've gone through distribution channels by the time they get to you. There's no way to get them as fresh as a restaurant could get them, which is going to give them really an edge to create tastes that the guy next door is not going to be able to get. That's a great point. But even from more than that, I realized from a cost savings perspective, not just that I'm going to be getting fresher, I hadn't even thought about fresh, picked 2 days ago to a week old that came through a food service distributor. No matter how good or organic and natural, it still has to go through a distribution chain. Well, this stuff gets picked and comes straight to you. So it's going to be better, but not only that, it's going to be less expensive, period. That's one thing I can say for sure, based on my experience. If you want 8 ounces of basil and 8 ounces of rosemary, and in cooking, because of the budget, getting back to the budget, I found myself not being able to use as much of these fresh herbs as I wanted to in all the things I prepared because they are so expensive.
Oh,
and
really?
I can't charge more. So would I put all fresh herbs in my tomato basil soup if I could just do nothing but chop fresh thyme and fresh basil and have fresh Roma tomatoes? And oh my gosh, you'd think you were in Italy. You know what I mean?
The
It's
flavor
crazy.
burst.
Yeah. So I'm a customer in that aspect, in that I know that in this 12 by 12 space for this amount of money, that if I subscribe to that as a chef, as a restaurateur, even in the size of restaurant that I have, that I would literally, maybe not save money, but I would definitely be able to use a lot more herbs for a little less money, but a larger restaurant in a city that used a lot. That, again, this is the trend of all restaurants and the farm-to-table movement and the farm-to-fork, and it's been in existence for years, but now it's becoming almost a demand of customers to eat these foods healthy. And in a lot of these areas, you know, they're not going to go to somewhere that they know is just buying processed only, you know, foods and selling them for $1 less or $2 less or whatever. People are willing now. There's not everybody, but luckily there's enough people who are willing to pay a little extra to take care of themselves because they love themselves enough to
you can
to
pay it.
feed
You can
yourself.
pay it in your health costs later, or you can do it preventative.
You're right.
right?
You're
So-
right. Exactly.
And
And
that-
not only that, but just feeling better and being more, as you know, and some of the people you've talked to, and in just in function in life and brain and energy and in
Right.
health and in brain function and in so many things that are affected by all of the garbage that we're putting in our mouths now and eating. It's just
Yeah, I mean, I lost 55 pounds
Wow.
last year, so I've kind of
Congratulations. That's a lot.
So I've
Yeah.
kind of gone through this health journey, read a lot
That's
of
like a
books.
ball of fat, like the big as
I
this
know,
globe right
it's-
here.
It was a lot, yeah. But you know, reading all these things about food and nutrition and everything, like I keep going back to our ancestral diet. That's what it always comes back to. It's like, what did our ancestors do? They had these things figured out, and in the last couple hundred years, we think we've got all this technology and we've mass-produced everything, and and
We
got to
missed a
go
few
back.
things.
There's some things. Everything that's old is becoming new again, and people are
Exactly.
realizing that.
And that's what I love about, again, another one of the planets and moons that came into alignment is that somebody said just the other day, it takes you back, but yet takes you forward at the same time. And so,
I love that. I love that phrase. That's great. That sums it up right there.
Yeah,
It sums up
and I
what you're
really
going to.
hope that that it builds a connection and that it educates and that it allows people the ability to do something that they otherwise couldn't. That's the ultimate goal, is not to replace anything or to make anything necessarily easier or even to provide more time in our life, because that's what it ultimately will do in many cases. But but the intention was more, I think, therapeutic on all levels than it was just another gizmo to save you time, because there's still time involved in it, but it's hopefully quality time that gives you a quality result, that gives you something that's quality for your body and isn't just another video game or another card game or another something that's eating up people's times, and people are becoming addicted to their screens. Maybe this is something healthy since they're going to be on their screens anyway.
Right. Yeah, I love it. And I love the personalized part of it, right? That this is something that you own, that you can see grow, and you are kind of part of this creation.
Right.
Even though you might not be there, you can be part of it.
Yeah, the applications are continually unfolding, you know. Yeah.
Great, great. So we've talked about the app a little bit. We've talked about the land, the workers, and all the benefits that kind of comes in that ecosystem, the bees, the local farmers, all the economic stuff, and bringing this fresh food to the table. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about your restaurant and how it's unique, and where do you see it going in the future?
You bet. Yeah, the restaurant is really special, and people have recognized that. And I think there's a lot of people who are willing to, wanting to find. We have people even traveling down from Salt Lake.
Whenever I travel somewhere, I talk to the people, and I'm like, I want the local mom and pop shop. You know, I don't want to go to Applebee's or wherever else.
Right. And that's what we are. We're an independent restaurant with a few partners who have just sort of. It was in the story of how the restaurant came about is that I own a catering company. I've been in the restaurant business forever, but I always told people that if you want to make a good investment, don't make it in a restaurant. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, and any financial advisor will tell you the same thing. And so the reason for that is that statistically, the odds are against you from the beginning. In fact, it used to be that 9 out of 10, independent restaurants would fail. Now that's changed a lot, and people are starting, like yourself, looking for something different, something that's going to be unique, something they're going to taste something in their mouth that they haven't tasted before, and so. But I still swore I would never do another restaurant, and I started doing catering and did a very successful catering business with a lot of weddings, some corporate stuff, but mainly specialized in weddings. And then this sort of like restaurant nightmares opportunity came along, and some people had an existing restaurant, and it wasn't doing really well. It wasn't a great concept, and in my mind, I've always had this sort of concept that existed and sort of, again, developed almost like this platform in my mind. I'm always, when I have something, I sort of keep thinking about it. And so I had the idea in the Bay Area when I was living in the Bay Area in Silicon Valley, I thought about a restaurant there that would serve healthy food, but also would be kind of a throwback to the heritage of what the community used to be before.
I love it.
So
love it.
what that was, and the vision of that was kind of a restaurant that you would walk into, and there would be fruit ladders, and there would be an open kind of storeroom where you would have bags of produce that used to locally grow prevalently there, and we would still try to source things from the local few little markets that remain.
It's kind of like a marketplace type of vibe.
Exactly. And then also offer even like a little general store with products and things that were, produced back then in that area, whether they grew a lot of apricots. We'd have apricot jam. We would have almonds that were for sale in a number of different ways from a local vendor who still made, artisan roasted nuts or something like that. And then the inside would be artifacts and things from what it took to make that happen. And so that's where the restaurant idea was there. And then Utah has very much that same heritage in the farming community. And so I thought, well, there it was citrus and nuts, and here it's apples and pears and peaches and nectarines and plums and everything, nothing different. And so what we did is I threw together a lot of old memorabilia along with a lot of old farming memorabilia, and just threw together a very eclectic, shabby chic mix of Utah history.
Kind of like a
And farming
local
history,
local
yeah.
Cracker Barrel type
Oh,
interior.
now, I didn't want to throw that name out there, and I just had it on me. You read my mind, because
Sorry.
it is, no, that's okay. It's a little bit like that, but on a much smaller scale and more of a local-only scale.
Right,
So
right.
what we really push there is local stuff. Like in our general store at the restaurant, it's local art and local jams and local honey and local books and local photographs and local, everything's from Utah. So we're very much our Utah proud and made in Utah kind of movement within our store and within our restaurant. And we want to support Utah economy through our purchasing practices, and also help the small artist and the small, they're all little people
Small
that are in there,
businesses,
right?
right, yeah.
Exactly. They're all local. There's nothing in there that's not natural, organic, healthy, and from Utah. We have edible Play-Doh for kids that's
Oh,
made
really?
in
Wow.
that's nut-free, soy-free, egg-free, gluten-free. It's basically completely every allergen you could possibly think of, dairy, everything free, but yet kids can roll it out and play with it and make cookie cuts out of it and eat it. So that kind of stuff, and jams and pottery, things like that from local artists.
I love it. Yeah.
Packer Pottery is a great local potter that we've teamed up with, and he's going to be making plates for the whole restaurant. So we're trying to really support the local.
So on that note,
Yeah.
talk about where you get your food from for the
yeah.
restaurant.
Perfect, yeah. So we get it from a number of different places. We get it, a lot of our greens come from a place called Snuck Farms, and that's in Pleasant Grove, Utah here, and it's an organic, hydroponic, completely sterile, practically, environment where they're growing some of the most incredible greens that I've ever tasted in my life. And you actually go through one door, into another room before you enter into the actual greenhouse. So it's completely pest-free, and these are baby greens and all different varieties of herbs and lettuces that they're growing there that they're selling for a reasonable cost, and they're not cheap. It's obviously costs more to eat healthy. That's what's so wonderful about this app, is that it gives people the ability to eat healthy, hopefully without spending a whole lot more. But anyway, the Snuck Farms provides all those greens, and then in the summertime, there's a Chavez a co-op. It's basically just a guy who's a local farmer who has gone around and crop shares a lot of different local farms, and then he takes care of their stuff and he sells all their stuff, and he basically sells all that to us wholesale, as well as a local herb farm, Wadley Farms. There's a place called Wadley Family Farms that grows organic raspberries for us. And so anywhere, and our honey comes right from Pleasant Grove, which we use in our sauces and sell in our general store. So anything we can get who can distribute a product to us legally that we can serve in our restaurant, we're going to use. Obviously we have to be careful in a restaurant that where we're getting and serving our food from. But, we also have a little pop-up farmers market, which is a little different, which we have every Friday during the summer at the restaurant. We have live music on Saturdays, but we have a pop-up farmers market where we actually will take all of those things, and we have a truck. These products that we're selling are brought in the morning, and they were literally picked. Like you can see on the zucchini and on the corn and stuff, the liquids are just like juicing out of them. These guys
morning.
get up at 3 in the morning, and they're in the fields picking this stuff. They're dropping them off at us about 10 o'clock a.m., and at 5 p.m. we have a little pop-up market, and we're selling all this stuff for very reasonable, great prices. And so that's where, obviously in the summertime, it's easier to get the local stuff. Now, as it becomes Wintertime, obviously, we're not getting tomatoes
Right.
from here. We are still getting herbs and lettuces and things that are grown indoors. These are available year-round.
Greenhouse type stuff.
Right. But otherwise, we're definitely looking for, stuff grown in the United States that's organic. And so there are great places, and all food vendors and everybody are carrying these products. But again, they've gone from here to shipped to the warehouse, shipped to the distributor, shipped to the other warehouse, then shipped to the store, and then or wherever.
Yeah, a lot of middlemen, right? Too many.
Well, middlemen and also time. And that's what's so nice about the small scale direct shipping is that we really have the ability and need to get it to you, quickly, because we don't have big refrigerated trucks. We're going to pick it fresh and ship it.
Sure.
I don't have in the plans anywhere for giant refrigerators. It's going to get picked, and it's going to get co-packed, and it's going to get shipped.
Then like the next day.
Literally, because it has to. Otherwise, you have to, have gigantic refrigeration warehouses, which aren't part of the plan. We're going to whack it and ship it,
Get it out of there.
Yeah, we're going to do it. Yeah.
Great. Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about, the app or the business model or the restaurant?
Well, no, I think it's great that you brought up the restaurant, because that's kind of one of the things that's one of the legs and elements that brings it all together, because of not just my gardening experience, my total lack of tech experience, but my restaurant experience. Is that part of the platform is to continually educate and share with people what it is that they can do with all this stuff they grow. Because people might go, well, this is great, this is a garden, but then they go to eat their cucumber and it's bitter, and I didn't explain to them, well, but if you just take half the peels off and then put it with this and that. So we're going to do a lot
Pickle
of
it, or
we're going to do a lot of education for people. They can obviously learn on their own what to do with it, but we want to give them my Chef Craig's tested, and approved but not only that, but what's beautiful about the recipes that we'll be giving and sharing with them is that it's not like, well, we went and bought this stuff, and then we're going to show you how to cook it, and this stuff that you're getting is totally different. What we're going to be cooking with and making this food with is going to be the exact same stuff and varieties, and from the same, we'll let them know which garden this is from, and then they'll know constantly what to be expecting. This is coming soon, so here's a recipe for these when you get them, because we can tell that my gardeners are telling me they're like 2 weeks away from, these. So we want to share with you now this recipe of what you're going to be able to do with these. Here's a couple of options.
So you can serve some samples to people and say, look, this is something that you can make from your garden stuff.
Well, yeah, we'll give them, we'll prepare it on a video for them, so they'll have access to actually watch us make the recipe. And we'll give it to them on a screen, and I'll be there. I commit to sharing all this with them as part of the platform. And not just myself, but hopefully we'll entertain them through having some other guest chefs on there, and we give them, look what we got in the garden this year, Chef Ramsay, what are you going to do with it, And so, I think people will want to participate. I've already had other chefs who have said they'd love to come on and create a dish based upon using these fresh things that have just coming or are soon to come from the garden, because we can't make it before you do, because when it's right for you, it's going to be right for us. So we're going to share weekly, what to do with what's
going
coming.
on. Gotcha.
Yeah, which is
so do you see
creates great user interaction and entertainment and knowledge and resources, and they don't have to feel like we're just gonna it's completely. It is very technologically based, but we don't want it to be like one of these internet companies where you can never talk to a real person. In other words, we want to build a platform for communication rather than having to call and then, send 5 emails or talk to a robobot about your garden. No, we'll do what it takes to make sure that you or our master gardener or someone in the community responds.
Answers your questions, yeah.
We share all of our different things, and Plot 16's doing, super great with this, and so it's just everything just.
So do you
works
see
together.
a cookbook coming out of this?
Oh yeah, in fact, on our Kickstarter, I must give away something, and so I can't sell reservations. So in order to fulfill the rules, we're going to first of all do a compilation of some of my favorite farm to fork, recipes that'll be available at every level, even $25, with the bottom donation. And so the thing is yes, absolutely yes, a must have, and I don't know if it's something that would be published, but I could see the cookbook and the recipes being a resource constantly online to anybody who wants the app, or for the users of the gardens, because other people might want to participate just like they can in that future farmers market I was telling you about. If they're not an actual grower of the garden, they can't get any of the stuff that the other users that have the gardens do, because I want all that excess not to be sold but to be donated to charity. But they'll still be able to participate and get berries from Oregon, or cheese from Wisconsin, or huckleberries from Tennessee, or these organic free-range chickens from Arkansas, or whatever it be.
So you see this being kind of a nationwide farmers market?
Oh yeah. Well, for the
certain types.
It depends also on regional and how big it grows, because we may have to, with each particular region, because of the demand that I think that we're going to have, we may have to have each regional farm incorporate those local farms that I'm talking about for those ancillary purchases that we don't ever actually handle. So just like Amazon doesn't ever touch all the stuff that they ship and collect money off of, but they've somehow, got their grip on everything that ever gets delivered. And on a Sunday afternoon, the only cars that I ever see go up and down my street is an Amazon Prime van. Yeah. It's gotten crazy, but I'm like, wait, it's Sunday. The U.S. Postal Service is even out there on Sunday, and they are. So things have changed,
Great. So let's recap a little bit. So you're developing this app that allows someone to tend to a garden virtually. You can pick what plants or vegetables that you want to grow. You can even push a button to see the water if you want to water. I'm sure my kids would love that. Like, we're going to water the plants. And look at that.
You got to be careful. You can't overwater.
Not too much, yeah. And you've got the local community involved. You're helping out these organic small farmers that may not be able to compete with some of the Costco's and the larger population, big companies. And then also you got the bee part into it. So there's a lot of pieces into this marketplace, this farmers market type thing. So let's kind of bring all that together to what's next. You've got the Kickstarter, and how can people find that? And
sure.
Find
now that's
you?
a great question. Again, and I always love questions, and I always say it's a great question because I must just love all questions, because I always tell people I want to just do nothing but answer questions because I've thought about it all, and it's like, you can't stump me. There was somebody who said, a consultant who said, I can talk to you for half an hour and I'll know more about your business than you do. I said, not this one.
Right. Yeah, I can tell you've had this in your mind for a long time.
Right. So again, the question was, tell me the question one more time.
So we're kind of bringing it all together. And I know you've got this Kickstarter. Just kind of
the schedule.
Tell me the schedule, how people can find it.
Thank you. Yes. And so please, people who are interested right now, you can follow us on Facebook at GroGrub, period. Just GroGrub. So that's a good, because I've entered it wrong myself.
Without the W,
it's GroGrub, because the other one was taken and they wanted $19,000 for the domain name. Some cyber squatters already stole it. So anyway, good luck selling it now is all I have to them. But anyway, then also we have our website, which is just grogrub.com. Again, GroGrub. And then we have GroGrub at GroGrub Official on Instagram.
Okay.
And through those, you'll be able to find links to our Kickstarter, which I really hope and ask people to help participate and help to launch this thing and get it off the ground. Because then where we go from there was your question. And so really the schedule is as this. For many, many reasons, for minds smarter than mine, was that we don't and must not grow too quickly, because we will create too many problems and too many dissatisfied customers. So we know where we want to go, but we want to improve the user experience to a point that it becomes satisfactory to people. So that first phase of those first 64 people will be part of a focus group. That will take place this very year. Again, they're telling me that the app to finalize is going to take around till May. Sadly, it wouldn't be done a little bit sooner, because I'm anxious. I'd love to get those things in April or May, but in March or April. But again, May we'll have some starts going and we'll roll it out. Now, those people who are participating in that have a lifetime membership with their contribution and their pledge. So they have a lifetime membership to this plot. So it's not that critical that they're going to miss the first 2 months. But then we'll get those going. We'll get the harvesting done by the end of this year, and by the very January of 2021 is when I am committed to having selected the location and the space to roll out those next ones. And those are a very inexpensive sort of prepayment for your first couple months on the Kickstarter. And people who want to get those, there's only going to be, sadly, unless things change, which they may, but I regret to say that what I can foresee within my own means is to roll out 64 or 80, of which 16 are going to be test plots this year, then 950, and then 1,900 after that. Now, going beyond that, it's impossible to really forecast, because so many things will change by that point.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be like trying to make a roadmap because it's limitless what could potentially happen if someone gets involved as a partner and likes the idea. I know Amazon's going to have something to do with it. Well, that's exactly right. And I know Amazon's going to be calling, because, the thing about it is that somebody's got to deliver all this stuff. And I know it's already, they've already sewed things up. And so
they've got the logistics down, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it's incredible. And so I see them as, the first ones that I would approach to, for distribution. But again, if they want a little piece of the action, then, I definitely need a strategic partner. Again, for the home use and the home application, I've reached out to Vivint, but haven't been able to get a hold of the big wigs, but somebody's going to hear about it soon enough and help to expedite the development.
Yeah, I think once this prototype first year, once this first year prototype kind of gets out the ground and people share their experiences, and I think it's going to grow.
Yeah, it will grow organically, and I'll be surprised if based upon what I've been hearing and just the little buzz and this and that, but and what people are telling me to expect, it's somebody, when there's a huge demand for something, there's always somebody who's willing to help you fill the demand.
Right.
But the demand is the thing that everybody really wants to see more than anything. Like Tesla, they've never made a dime. They haven't made any money, but people are still willing to invest because they know that he's created this demand, that's
shooken up the industry, right? So,
and for something. So anyway,
Well, Chef Craig, it's been a pleasure talking with you.
Likewise.
I really think that this is going to, start something that, everybody can use, even kids that don't have any gardening experience. I really love the idea of kind of educating someone through their smartphone, because that's what everybody's using right now, and putting these tips on here, like don't grow this plant next to this. I love that. I love the educational part. I love being able to relate the technology back to our ancestral diet, and I wish you the best in your endeavors, and I look forward to seeing this to fruition.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to say thank you so much for having me as well, because spreading the word is what it's really about for us at this point, in being such the infant stage of it all. And so thank you very, very much for having me. And it's a pleasure.
It's been great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chef Craig.
Yeah, my pleasure.
The world is full of interesting people with wisdom and extraordinary experiences to learn from. Join me on a journey to discover them, speak with them, and learn from them.
I'm Adrian Sinclair.
host of A Podcast with Interesting People at apodcast.com.